Everything happens for a reason. Deep within a green forest, where tall trees whispered ancient secrets, a young man ran desperately, tears streaming down his face. His breath was heavy, his heart weighed down with despair. At last, he stumbled upon a small hut at the forest's edge where a sage sat in quiet meditation. Falling to his knees, the young man sobbed. "I've lost everything," he cried. "On my journey through the forest, thieves attacked me. They stole all I had, my money, my food, even my precious belongings. Now I'm left with nothing, no way to return home. My life is over." The sage remained calm, serene like a still lake at dawn. He placed a gentle hand on the young man's shoulder and said, "Do not worry, my son. Whatever happens, happens for a reason, and that reason always leads to something good." The young man looked up, eyes burning with anger. "How can you say that? I've lost everything. This is the worst thing that has ever happened to me. How could loss ever be good?" The sage only smiled, unshaken. With a nod, he replied, "If you do not believe me, let me share a story with you." The farmer's loss. Long ago, in a small village surrounded by rivers, there lived a poor farmer with his wife and their young son. Their only possessions were a humble hut and a few jars of grain. Though poor, they lived in peace and love. But one year, a terrible flood struck. The raging waters swept away homes, animals, and crops. The farmer lost everything in an instant. He collapsed to the ground, crying, "We are ruined. How will we survive now? This is the end for us." His young son, eyes filled with hope, held his father's hand and said, "Father, don't be sad. I believe everything happens for a good reason." But those words only fueled the father's grief and anger. "How dare you say that? We've lost everything. What good could come of this? If you truly believe such nonsense, then leave. You are no longer my son." Blinded by fury, the farmer drove the boy away. Heartbroken, the child wept as he disappeared into the distance. Only when evening fell did the farmer realize the harshness of his words. Regret filled his heart, but it was already too late. A glimmer of hope. That night, the flood raged on, destroying the village. The farmer and his wife clung to each other in despair. Suddenly, a voice called from the river, "Come quickly, we've come to rescue you." A boat appeared, carrying aid workers who pulled them aboard. The farmer's wife whispered with relief, "See, our son was right, help has come." But the farmer shook his head bitterly. "What good is help now? We've lost our home, our food, even our memories. We have nothing left." In the days that followed, they survived only on charity. One day, his wife suggested, "Why don't you go to the city to look for work? Perhaps we can start again." The farmer reluctantly agreed. He walked for days, knocking on countless doors. Time after time, he was turned away. Some mocked him, others ignored him. Exhaustion and despair weighed him down. Just as he was about to give up, a kind merchant stopped and asked, "Are you looking for work? I can offer you a job and a place to stay. Work hard and your life will change." For the first time in a long while, a glimmer of hope flickered in the farmer's eyes. The son's return years passed. The farmer worked tirelessly under the merchant's guidance. At first, he did menial labor, but slowly he learned the ways of trade. He sent money home to support his wife, and life began to stabilize. One evening, there was a knock at the door. The farmer opened it and froze. Standing before him was a young man, tall and confident, carrying a large bag. "Father, it's me," the young man said, his voice trembling with emotion. "After you sent me away, I went to the city. At first, I struggled greatly, but eventually I found work, learned business, and built my own company. Today I have returned to take you and mother with me. I've bought a new house, large enough for us all." The farmer's eyes filled with tears as he embraced his son. "My son, if it weren't for the flood, if I hadn't sent you away, none of this would have happened. You were right. Everything does happen for a reason." And in that embrace, past sorrows melted away, replaced with the joy of reunion and a future filled with hope. Back to the forest, finishing his story, the sage looked at the young man sitting before him. "Do you see, my child? Life sometimes takes away what we treasure most, only to give us something greater." The young man whispered, uncertain, "But I've lost everything. How could this be a blessing?" The sage smiled gently. From within his robe, he pulled out a small shining stone and placed it in the young man's hand. "Take this. It is no ordinary stone. It is a rare and precious jewel. Sell it in the city, and you will have enough to rebuild your life." The young man gasped. The despair in his heart gave way to astonishment, then gratitude. He bowed deeply, tears now flowing not from sorrow but from hope. "Do you understand now?" the sage continued. "Had you not lost your belongings, you would not have sought me out. And had you not met me, you would never have received this gift. Everything happens for a reason." With that, the young man left the forest, walking with new strength, carrying not only a precious stone, but also a lesson that would forever guide his life. The final truth. As the sun dipped below the trees, the young man felt something shift within him. His losses still stung, but his heart was lighter. Perhaps life was not as cruel as he had thought. Perhaps each hardship hid a hidden blessing. He remembered the farmer and his son. Their tragedy had led to a reunion more joyful than they had ever known. And now, his own misfortune had led him to the sage and to a treasure that could change his destiny. The sage's words echoed in his mind. Do not judge life too soon. What feels like an ending today may be the beginning of something far greater tomorrow. From that moment on, the young man resolved never to let despair define him again. Instead, he would walk forward with patience, with faith, and with gratitude, even for the struggles. For deep in his heart, he now knew an unshakable truth. Everything happens for a reason. And that reason, sooner or later, will always guide us towards something better.